Last year, we had Brat Summer. This year, we have Turnstile Summer. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Pretty in Punk, the punk rock podcast. My name is Fiona, and I am your host and girly girl guide to the world of punk, rock, and everything in between. And I cannot wait for today's episode. We are reviewing Never Enough by Turnstile. This album has been so long awaited. The singles have been blowing it out of the water, and people have been talking about this album nonstop. And it hasn't even been a week since its release at the time that I am filming this. This album review is going to be more of a track by track style, where I will be giving my thoughts on each track and then some thoughts afterwards of an overview of what I think of all elements of the album. But personally, that's how I like to do it, and it's just the most fun for me to go down the list and review each track. Already, I've been listening to this album nonstop, and I can't wait to dive into it and talk about it with you guys. Now, I'm sure if you clicked on this video, you probably are already a Turnstile fan, but if you're not, I'll just give you a quick little background as to who they are, but this isn't a whole deep dive history of the band, so this is going to be a pretty short segment. But before we get into it, here's a quick intro. If you don't know, Turnstile is a band from Baltimore, Maryland that came out of the hardcore scene, and they have been shaking up the scene ever since in 2010. The current members of the band are Brendan Yates on vocals, Franz Lyons on bass, Daniel Fang on drums, and two guitarists, Pat McCroy and Meg Mills. I would say they're known for kind of breaking boundaries of punk, hardcore, and rock, blending it with pop, indie, melodic hardcore, electronic, even some pop punk elements in there and beyond. They really know how to push the boundaries. They have a sound that is both high energy yet unpredictable in the best way. Their last album dropped in 2021, and now they are back with their fourth studio album, Never Enough, released under Roadrunner Records on June 6th. So that's just a quick little blip, a little background on Turnstile, but honestly, I am way too excited to get into this episode, so I say we just get into it and get into, first of all, the track by track review of each song on Never Enough. Side note, this is all opinions based, so if you disagree with something, totally understandable, but be nice about it, okay? Starting off strong, track number 1, the title track, Never Enough. Right away, we open up with a very hazy sounding synth that kind of reminds me a little bit of the way that Glow On was opening. And then we have Brendan Yates, whose vocals kind of have this dreamy feel to them that totally match the vibe. And then here we go with a pop punk riff that comes in at just the perfect time. The kind of drop of the song comes in at, I think, the most perfect time because you don't lose the feel of the song, but it just elevates it a bit more. It's a song that's definitely headbang worthy, but still hypnotic in a way. Personally, I think this is the perfect way to open an album because it starts off very mellow and melodic, leads into a little bit of a rougher edge once the guitars come in and the drums and everything, but then it bleeds out with an outro that is kind of like a callback to the opening kind of synth, and it flows seamlessly into the next track. I feel like it's Turnstile's way of easing us into what's to come, because next is track 2, Soul. Soul picks up right where Never Enough leaves off. We have that synth kind of bleeding out, and then you have the drums starting to pound underneath. And then in comes this gritty driving guitar riff that I absolutely love. This, by far, already from the first time I heard this song, I knew it was going to be one of my favorites on the album, and it definitely is. It's got pit opening energy. This song is definitely on the grittier side. You can feel their hardcore roots, yet Brendan Yates' vocals are very clean, which I think is a nice contrast from the more hardcore feel of this song. And I think the contrast in the vocals from the heaviness of the song itself it works. I think it's the perfect dual action that we have going on there. The whole guitar motif, like the riff that you hear throughout, it's super infectious, and it definitely has some classic punk influence in there, which you guys know is totally my vibe. There's also this synth in there towards the end that shifts the energy right before the drop towards the end, and this one to me is a standout for sure, even though I have listened to this album many times in full, just so I could kind of get all my thoughts on paper and think of everything that I wanted to say and really get a feel for the album. This one I have been coming back to listen to on its own. I'm happy to give myself away. Track number 3 comes in at the perfect time because this is where we start to see Turnstile stretch their genre legs a little bit. I Care is definitely different from Soul, but in a really good way. I Care is very indie, spacey, and dreamy, and a major tone shift from the first 2 songs. The guitar is lighter and cleaner. It has kind of like a poppy feel almost. It's like indie pop in a way. Brendan's vocals, to me, sound just as natural on this track as they do on the more hardcore tracks. I think this song says a lot about the band's versatility, how we go from a track like Soul then to I Care. It just shows the versatility and the wide range of musical abilities that they have, both vocal-wise and musically. I love the guitar work in this, especially. I really like how it starts off a little dreamier, but then in the chorus, it gets a little bit grittier, so it adds some edge to it without completely shifting the vibe from what we already had going on in the beginning of the song. I really enjoy this one. I can see myself blasting this song with the sunroof open this summer, hence why people are calling it a turnstile summer. Now we're on to track number 4, Dreaming. This one caught me off guard in the best way possible. We have a horn section in there, there's a saxophone in there, and I was kind of sold instantly from that moment. I'm a huge ska fan, so anytime I hear a horn section in a song, like, I'm there, okay? Like, give me my white checkered Vans, I'm there. I love it. I think the riff paired with the horn section, so catchy, so infectious. I love it. I've had the melody of this song stuck in my head for like a week now. I think if you're a ska fan, you'll like this one. It's not like a full-on ska song, but I think like anything with a horn section to me is just, I love it. I'm really drawn to it. So I think if you're also the same as me, you'll love this song too. It was such a fun surprise. Like I wasn't expecting it, but it still feels so 100% Turnstile. But yeah, Dreaming, one of my favorites. As soon as there's like a horn section or something in there, I am sold. Never thought I'd be on my own, but I survived. Next up, track 5 is a light design. For me, this isn't one of my favorites. I guess it just didn't totally land for me personally, just my opinion. It's on the shorter side and it's definitely emotional and lyrically heartfelt, I think, which is something that I can really appreciate. Even though it's not one of my favorites, I definitely appreciate that element of it. It is not a bad track by any means. Spoiler alert, there's not a single bad track on this album. But if I were going for another repeat listen, it's just one that I might skip if I'm being honest. I think it does serve a purpose with the flow of the album, and it kind of sets up what is next on track 6. I'm going to! Track 6 is Dull. Dull brings us right back into Turnstile's heavier lane. It has that like crunchy chorus kind of drop that scratches the hardcore itch that I am always looking for. I would say too that in the chorus there's kind of like a new metal kind of tinge. Just a little bit. I don't know. I kind of get that vibe a little bit. I also love the like glitchy vocal effect that they have going on after the chorus. I thought that was a really cool touch. I love the chorus on this one. I think it's like totally like headbang worthy. I can totally see myself going crazy to this one when I see them. I actually just got tickets to see them in September, so cannot wait. And then we have the transition into Sunshower, and that is super smooth. Track 7, Sunshower, one of my favorites, hands down. It's fast, it's gritty, it's explosive, and it's giving me pure 90s punk vibes, in my opinion. I definitely get that feel from it. It has those like frantic drums, the shredding guitar, the shouty vocals, and this is the kind of song that I gravitate towards. So that vibe of the song lasts like a minute 30. Perfect length for a punk song, in my opinion. And then midway through, after that, it totally flips. We have this like dreamy synth with a flute like solo. It's very like soundscapes sounding in a way. And it's a complete 180, but it works. And that unexpected switch up is exactly why this song stands out for me, because it's aggressive and then melodic all at once. And it has this unexpected switch up that comes in at the perfect time where now you're like, okay, where is the rest of this album going to go? And the heavy hitters of the album do not stop there, because then track 8, Look Out For Me. Like I said, we have back-to-back heavy hitters, and that breadth of like the dreamy flute soundscape in between the two is perfection. I love that we go from the outro of Sunshower right into this. This one hits hard with a super infectious guitar riff and harsher vocals. I love the chorus where he's saying, "Now my heart is hanging by a thread." That's been like an earworm for me. I've had this stuck in my head too as well. Now, this song is knocking on 7 minutes long, because then halfway through, just like Sunshower, we have another shift, which I totally was not expecting. It shifts into a totally different vibe. We have yet another synthy kind of piano feel, a muted club beat, even like a spoken word sample, it seems. It's very experimental, but I think it totally pays off because I find this song very fascinating. I went for a walk earlier today and I was just listening to this whole track, and it didn't feel like it lost me at all, even though we did switch from a harder song to a totally different vibe, more on the electronic side with the beat going on. I didn't feel like it lost me at all. I mean, I was just like in a trance on my walk, in all honesty. I think it's a bold move that totally pays off. Moving on to track number 9, Ceiling feels like an interlude to me. It has this cool muted piano synth, pitched up vocals, and I definitely think it serves as a breather after Look Out For Me, and also as an interlude for what is to come next. I think of it more as like a moment to rest before we dive back in, and it seamlessly flows right into Seein Stars, which is another one of their singles that I have been listening to nonstop. This one has such a dreamy 80s synth pop kind of feel to it, especially with that guitar solo. I totally get that vibe from it, and it absolutely just shines through in the song. I think Brendan's vocals are super raw and emotional on this track, which I love. I think this song is some of my favorite work from him vocally. This one is definitely a standout for me. Finally, I can see it. These birds not meant to fly you there. Next up, track 11 is Birds, and if you have been anticipating this album, I know you have been listening to this song just as much as I have leading up to the release of this album. This is my favorite of their singles that they put out. I mean, this is Turnstile in like full on Turnstile mode. We have the shouty vocals, the frantic pacing, total punk and hardcore energy. It starts off just like super, super fast, and that's what I love. I love like those short, fast-paced punk songs, and then the second half launches into even higher gear. This is the song that got me so hyped for the album and still holds up as such a standout on the album, and I love it. I love the hardcore vibe of this. Honestly, I don't know why, but it kind of gives me Minor Threat vibes in a way. I don't know if anyone else agrees with that, but I do kind of get that feel from the fast pace rhythm in the beginning and the shouted vocals. After Birds, we have Slowdive. Slowdive to me is like a perfectly beautiful contradiction, I guess you can say, because the riff is slow but heavy, and the vocals, even though the guitar is a bit on the crunchier side, the vocals are softer and cleaner. And I think because of that, it's a song that captures exactly who Turnstile is. For me, these lyrics are really vulnerable, really poetic, and I really love these lyrics. It blends the heavy and the emotional, something that I think Turnstile is very, very talented at. Also, not sure if anyone else picked up on this, but it kind of reminds me of Sweet Leaf by Black Sabbath, just a little bit. Definitely hear that in the riff. Track 13, Time is Happening. To me, this is the most like pop punk sounding song. I mean, you have like the oohs and ahs in the back, and also the bright guitar riff and the punchy drums to me are very, very pop punk. I think it's upbeat, it's catchy, and to me, it's the perfect length. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's placed perfectly right where it needs to be. It's the perfect burst of energy at the end of the track list, right before the final closer. Then we have Magic Man, the album closer. So I will be honest, when I first heard this song, I kept waiting for it to like really take off, but it stays very mellow throughout. And at first, I was kind of like let down that the closer wasn't this huge, like hardcore big bang, but I actually get it. And I think that it brings the album full circle because it starts off more on the mellow side. And I think it circles back right to where we started and kind of it brings everything full circle, is what I'm trying to say. Back to that hazy, dreamy kind of feel, but also very emotional. It's a soft landing, not like a grand finale, I guess you could say, but I think it works. It may not be the closer I wanted, but it's one that makes sense, because at the end of the day, it's not about what I want. It's about what the band puts out. So, I didn't love this one at first because, again, I was hoping that it would pick up, but I think based off of two having Time is Happening right before, I think it makes sense why it is on the slower side, but kind of like with light design, I don't think I would go out of my way to listen to this one, if I'm being honest. It's just a personal preference, but again, I do understand why they chose to close the album out this way. All right, that has been my track by track review. I want to get into a segment where I talk about some standout musical elements for me and just what really grabbed me musically about this album, because I think there is so much to say as a whole about this album beyond just the individual songs. First off, Brendan Yates' vocals, truly the standout for me. He has this ability to feel completely at home in the very gritty side of music, but also on the softer, mellower side of music. And to me, that is pure talent because not many people have strengths in both. There are so many singers where they feel more comfortable in a softer range or more comfortable in a grittier, more hardcore range, but he has the ability to do both flawlessly. I think that kind of versatility is so hard to come by, and it plays a huge role in the band's ability to hop between genres so seamlessly. And speaking of versatility and genre hopping in a seamless way, the guitar and bass tones throughout the album, they're just perfection, in my opinion. I love it because one moment they're hitting you with like full on punk grit and distortion, but then the next they're very dreamy, very hazy, placed with some reverby vocals. We go from something you would hear on a hardcore punk record to then something you would hear on a indie bedroom pop record. And I find that so fascinating, yet the way that they do it is so natural. It's not forced. And I find that very impressive. And the same goes for the drums because one minute they are pounding and chaotic in the best way. Then when the drums are dialed back for a more melodic feel, they still sound so tight and so put together. To me, this album proves that Turnstile aren't just punk musicians or hardcore musicians their musicians, period. You can tell that they have a very deep understanding of how different genres work and function, and they use that knowledge to fuel their sound in a really exciting and a really innovative way. I think their ability to jump between styles so effortlessly is something that I really admire, and it keeps their music so unpredictable and genuinely exciting to listen to. Like, I know this album just came out, but I can't wait to see what's next because they can truly go anywhere and I'll be listening. Okay. And I think too, with this album, there is something for everyone to listen to. If you're a hardcore punk fan, if you're a pop punk fan, if you like more electronic rock, if you like indie rock, there is something for you. Even if you like pop music, there is something for you. I think anyone of any music genre will find a song on this album that resonates with them and that they like. And that is just so cool to me. Especially, I am someone who, yes, while I am a punk centered podcast, I talk about more than punk and I love more than punk. So for me, this was so refreshing and so cool. Next up, I quickly want to touch on some production elements that stood out to me because I think the production is a huge part of what makes Never Enough so compelling, because we are dealing with so many different types of genres of music. We're dealing with the hardcore, we're dealing with the more melodic, the more electronic. Production is what makes this album soar. All that to say, what stands out to me is how the harder songs, they're gritty and they're raw, but they're also clean. And I mean that in the best way, because that's not an easy feat to make something so gritty and so rough sound so clean and polished. It's like they've taken the beloved elements of punk and pop punk, but brought it into a more modern sphere. The production is tight and it's punchy, but to me, it doesn't feel so like overproduced. Like, yes, it is polished, but you still feel that hardcore edge to it, but it's shaped in a way that is totally current. Then on the flip side, with the cleaner, softer tracks, you have this dreamy, spacey quality to them. I know I've been overusing those words, but I feel like that's the perfect way to describe them. You can totally hear the reverb, you hear all the layers and the subtle effects that have been added, and it creates a vibe you can totally get lost in right after hearing one of those punchy hardcore tracks. To me, I feel like each song on this album has like this own little world you can live in, because all of the vibes on the album are so different. I mean, one minute you are in this dreamy, hazy feel, the next minute we have an 80s pop feel, the next minute we have hardcore punk. It's just so fascinating to me, and I think everything was executed flawlessly. The contrast between all the different songs and all the different genres and feel, to me, it's what makes this album so great. It's not just a punk record with a few chill songs, it is fully thought out. Now, I want to wrap it up. I want to give you my overall thoughts on this album. Hint, hint, you can already tell I'm loving this album, okay? Overall, to me, Never Enough by Turnstile, it's a bold, risk-taking album that really pushes the boundaries of what a hardcore album can be. Turnstile dives headfirst into experimentation, which I think is something they are so good at, and they blend elements of hardcore, punk, post-punk, indie rock, electronic, and even pop. And the best part is it all works perfectly and seamlessly. To me, what makes this album so refreshing is that Turnstile isn't afraid to challenge the rules of what people think rock and punk should be. They completely defy this stereotype or this idea that a certain genre of music has to have one specific sound. Instead, they are rewriting what this genre and scene of music has to offer, and they're doing it with confidence and creativity, in my opinion. But even with the shifts between genres, because we have a lot of that going on, nothing feels like odd or out of place. I think the transitions on this album are seamless. I mean, some of the songs just flow so perfectly into one another, because whether we have a gritty hardcore track or a more spacey, dreamy indie feel that has some synths going on in there, each song flows so perfectly into the next, in my opinion. I mean, like, if you listen from start to finish, you can just feel how perfectly the track list was created. Some songs, just like I said, bleed into each other so perfectly. So when you listen to it back to back, it was just placed so perfectly. I think the song order is spot on. Now, if I had to give this album a rating, I think you can already tell I will be rating it pretty highly. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, and that is only because there are a couple songs I wouldn't listen to if I was listening to the song like back to back. I would skip a couple of songs, and that's okay. I'm the kind of person that mostly gravitates toward like the harder, heavier songs, but I still love a lot of the dreamier ones on this album too. But final answer, my rating is 8 out of 10. Top 3 songs on this album would have to be Dull, Soul, and Sunshower. Now, to wrap it all up, I want to hear from you. What did you think of the album? Did you love it as much as I did? What are your favorite songs off of this album? What do you think? I need to know, and I need to talk about this album with you guys because I am loving it. I've been listening to it nonstop. Like I said, I already have tickets to see them in September. I cannot wait. So definitely drop me a comment and let me know what you thought of the album and what your favorite tracks are. Now, if you haven't checked out this album, definitely listen to it. But if you didn't know, I do have a Song of the Week playlist on Spotify. You can find it linked below in the show notes or in the YouTube description. And I will be adding a song so you can listen to it there. And this week I'm adding Turnstile song Zol off of their latest album. So definitely check that one out. It's one of my favorites for sure. If you want to follow me on social media, you can find me at Pretty and Punk Pod on TikTok and on Instagram as well. I mostly post on TikTok. And you can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, all the usual streaming platforms, as well as YouTube for video podcasts. YouTube personally is my favorite, and I did just hit 1K, so thank you for subscribing. That's pretty cool. But all that to say, thank you so much for listening, and now I hope you go and listen to Never Enough by Turnstile and let me know what you think of it. But I will see you next week in the next episode.